On June 6, 2025, Capcom announced at the Summer's Game Festival the development and existence of Resident Evil Requiem, or what will be for fans its 9th installment in Capcom's modern trilogy of the saga. Interestingly, reports from developers in interviews indicated that the game would be the final end of the trilogy, with it seemingly tying together all of its past releases. Since this announcement, we've received 3 major trailers, with the first introducing us to Grace Ashcroft, the protagonist, as well as the return of the beloved setting from Resident Evil 2, Raccoon City. This was understandably exciting for the fans, and even more so with the most recent trailer revealing that Leon S. Kennedy would not only return, but be a playable character alongside Grace. After months of analysing and assessing what this game has to be from the trailers, I believe I've uncovered the plot for the final game. Not only that, but I've also found that perhaps this game will feature the most expansive lore in correlation to the series, and perhaps its truly most threatening antagonist. I believe my explanation is able to tie together all of the major events of the trilogy, lining in with what Capcom has said about the game. I believe it ties together Mother Miranda, Spencer, the formation of Umbrella, Wesker, and even the Los Illuminados.
An insidious force known simply as the Connections was operating from the shadows, and also played a key role in the incident. To this day, little is known about the Connections.
What if I were to tell you that the villains, even the merchants, are all pawns in a game? A game operated by something unseen, something otherworldly. The man we see in the chair has been officially named as the likes of a Victor Gideon, but not even this is true. At least, not in the way that you would expect. The figure in the chair, make no mistake, did kill Grace's mother, but it is not Victor. Not even a man. At least not anymore. But something far worse. But how do I know all of this? Well, it can be tied back to 2 words. Project Elpis. But before we get into the theory, I need to start by analysing the trailers in order to prove what we can definitively say about the game. From our understanding of what's been shown, we play as Grace Ashcroft, an FBI agent who seemingly is investigating a case tied to disappearances and the suspected re-emergence of Umbrella. One of these disappearances involves her own mother, Alyssa Ashcroft. Alyssa is one of the many past characters returning or being mentioned in this game, which is crucial to also understanding how the villain features into the story. As detailed in a report she is writing at the start of the game's trailer, Grace's investigation centers around a 4th victim of an unidentified disease, found at an abandoned government office. Her mother Alyssa seemed to have covered the Baker household incident from Resident Evil 7, so it's highly probable that her disappearance and murder at the Wrenwood Hotel is in some way connected. This seems to culminate in a new lead, being the man Victor Gideon, a past Umbrella scientist who, upon the company's fall in 2003, purchased the Rose Hill Chronic Care Center. Called into his office, Grace is informed by the FBI director that a recently discovered body is exhibiting the same symptoms as seen in past victims tied to the investigation, seemingly shining a light on the case's progression. What the director, a man by the name of Nathan Dempsey, does next, however, seems to immediately put him in a spotlight of question. He assigns her to Raccoon City to keep close eyes on the recent developments.
Put a hold on that for now. Now I need a good technical analyst on this.
Okay.
The Wrenwood Hotel. I know that's where your mother was murdered. Alyssa died 8 years ago. Perhaps it's time for you to face the past.
This is understandably a personal experience for Grace, given her also witnessing her mother's passing at the Wrenwood Hotel, and it's ultimately at this location that she ends up being led and falling into the hands of Victor Gideon, a man that the FBI, as well as knowing as him being in the area, judging by Hunnigan's intel given to Leon, already knows that he has a connection to Umbrella. But I don't think any of these things are mere circumstances. I think our friend Nathan here knows a little more than he's letting on. He's pushing Grace to investigate a traumatic location from her past, seemingly lacking any empathy or any sensibility, as just as he sends her by herself, she's evidently sent lacking any kind of backup or firearm. Grace wakes up underground after being attacked by Gideon, after what was clearly an unsuccessful attempt at questioning him. She's been subdued and strapped to a table, with an IV stuck into her arm, before waking up underground with whatever this thing is. The fact that we don't see Gideon with any kind of bullet wounds on his outfit when we see him later in the trailer seems to indicate that their altercation lacked the presence of Grace having a firearm, with her running and hiding from him rather than defending herself.
Grace! Grace!
This is almost undeniable proof that the FBI director is involved in the connections. According to the official word of the FBI themselves, only special agents are allowed and actually mandated to carry a service weapon. Given this fact, why would an FBI director of all people send a technical analyst by herself to investigate a case where a culprit tied to several homicides is nearby? It just doesn't line up. Why would you put her in the position of interviewing a potential murder suspect by herself? We know Leon shows up later, but only after she's been abducted by Gideon, not before, as judging by his reaction to her presence, Grace meeting Leon seems to be their first encounter.
Hey, over here! FBI, what are you doing here?
Given these facts, it's almost certainly the case that FBI Director Nathan Dempsey and antagonist Victor Gideon are working in cahoots as allies under some kind of shared goal for a common group or leader. And if you need any more evidence that there is some kind of connection between the two, look no further than in Resident Evil 7, where we actually did see a photo of the connections themselves. And not only is a man that looks extremely similar to Gideon visible in the photo, wearing a near identical outfit and scruffy kind of coat, but we can also see a man that strongly resembles the FBI director mere feet from him. And if this were true, it definitely looks like Capcom has always been setting up for the connections to have ended up infiltrating areas of society where they can use power to their advantage, and operate with no trace back to them from the shadows, undetectable. With Victor conducting his experiments and picking up where Umbrella left off, and Nathan providing any additional intel or suitable subject, which as we'll see with Rose Winters is also the case. But don't worry, we'll cover that later in the video. What they happen to be a part of is yes tied to Umbrella and reviving its legacy, but what they are a part of in the present is almost certainly the organization that will become the Umbrella Corporation's successor after its fall, the Connections. But before we get into who I think Gideon is and what he wants, it's time to address the major elephant in the room. What is this? Since the gameplay reveal, the community has been evidently put off by this creature, and for good reason. As we do not have a definitive name for it, I will refer to it as what the rest of the community chooses to refer to it, being the Requiem Stalker. Being a lifelong fan of Resident Evil, I know my fair share about the biological and physical horrors of each monstrosity afflicted by the various viruses or diabolical engineering throughout the series. And I believe through analyzing its physical and behavioral traits, as well as abilities, we can pinpoint exactly what the Requiem Stalker really is. What you're about to hear is my physical analysis and scientifically accurate assessment of the creature. Yeah, I was bored one night before my exams, and I just tried to use the energy to do something productive, because I sure wasn't getting anything else done. But anyway, let's just keep going. Whilst we don't have a definitive height for the creature, it appears as being double the height of Grace Ashford, who is officially listed as being 5'10", and given that it's hunched over due to the ceiling compressing it, that immediately puts the creature at anywhere from 3.5 to 4 meters tall, or for my American viewers out there, roughly 12 to 13 feet. This crowns the creature as being the tallest stalker enemy in all of the games, surpassing even the likes of Lady Dimitrescu at 2.9 meters. This creature towers over any person with its frame-dominating hallways, crawling through vents and exhibiting intentional genetic modification, with its origin most certainly initially being that of a human. My reasoning for this assumption is the gown that it wears. It perfectly is tailored to fit the creature's towering body. With the Requiem Stalker wearing a fitted gown that's in relatively good shape, it's almost certain that this design choice is indicative of its origins coming from that of a human test subject. Whilst it does show a bite mark on its arm, matching the imprint from a human, either indicating that Grace is able to actually fight back when it grabs onto her, or the bite mark coming from a lesser B.O.W. like one of the infected scientists, the fact that the creature's eyes are not bleeding, much like an infected police officer is when we watch the first trailer, and its behavior being more refined and controlled like a sole organism as opposed to a parasite or virus controlling it, paints the picture with certainty that this isn't just some random infected with some strain of virus. And on the possibility that the bite mark comes from one of the infected scientists, the fact that a B.O.W. would even bite this creature indicates that there is something distinctly human about it. If you even want more proof of this theory of it being human, look no further than its arms having that broken lab restraint and a gown that matches the kind of garment Umbrella used on captive female prisoners that they tested on, such as Lisa Trevor. Given the creature being female in origin, people are either pointing at 3 candidates: Lisa Trevor, Alyssa Ashcroft, or Alex Wesker, but I'm inclined to believe that it's none of the possibilities, as my next piece of evidence will show. Judging by the thing's hair upon its scalp, present, albeit sparse, the hair strands seem to be dead and unable to grow, as the result of something akin to radiation exposure, as seen in something like chemotherapy patients. Radiation is not something that has been used by Umbrella prior, which indicates that this is the first instance of such a method being used, which I can explain shortly. But back to why this thing is most certainly something that has been experimented on and created since its birth, look no further than the way its facial structure appears. Protruding facial growth suggests bone cancer, while the unusual line down its forehead and the proportions of the cranium resemble those seen in early skull formation. The skeletal structure, judging by its posture, is also poorly fused, consistent with forced and dramatic growth acceleration. These features only present in this particular bioweapon indicate that the embryonic traits are present throughout the creature's biology, meaning its host was either a child or a random subject experimented in their youth, much like Lisa Trevor. Despite this, I do believe the creature to not be something recent, but something old that Umbrella was working on prior to the bombs falling, something locked away underground, and something that Victor shows keen interest in using. The eyes show signs of cataracts, which can be seen in ailments from old age or congenital conditions. Supporting the idea of its advancing age, the mouth reveals a receding gum line around the teeth, a condition also associated with aging. So, what we've established so far is that this creature is one of potentially many of Umbrella's experiments aimed at creating an advanced bioweapon with high strength and intelligence through genetic manipulation of a young female test subject. But just how did Umbrella create this weapon, and what connection does it have to Grace? By analyzing this creature's notable physical features and what functionality they granted, we find an intriguing set of signs. Its eyes appear tubular and large, indicating its similarities to owls, or more closely that of a deep-sea fish. Deep-sea fish have evolved highly sensitive vision to survive in near-total darkness, with large spherical or tubular eyes packed with rod cells to maximize light detection. Many can detect bioluminescence, whilst some species in the deeper zones are nearly or completely blind. This would explain how the creature is unable to detect the player in its introduction scene, despite us being right next to it, because we have the lighter in front of us. A land mammal with deep sea fish eyes would have extreme light-sensitive retinas tuned for darkness, little to no protection, like pupils constricting quickly or pigments to shield the retina, and possibly no color discrimination or contrast handling in bright environments. So when a lighter ignites or it's placed in an environment with a light source, the sudden intense light would overwhelm the retina, causing a glare or temporary whitening out of vision in that area. The predator would experience a localized blind spot or blur where the prey is silhouetted or washed out, and it may struggle to resolve shapes or motion near the light. This explains why it didn't immediately kill the player, and only when it utilizes other senses, sniffing in context of the introduction, did it detect our presence and begin the chase. Like a deep sea fish, it also has to utilize its senses when sight is impaired, which we do see the creature doing, with it utilizing sound as well as smell. It also shows how the creature, despite having cataracts, is able to follow us so easily. It can detect our bioluminescence, not to be confused with UV light, which would impair it. On top of the marine life influence, I also believe the eyes are that genetically of a deep sea fish paired with traits from a dog/canine, as seen with the creature having a tapetum lucidium that causes the eye to have a green shine, which is seen primarily in dogs instead of fish. Fishes can have a green reflection in the eyes, but when looking at exclusively deep-sea fish, it's almost certainly closer to white or silver. The biological rationale for this can be seen as a necessary step in creation of these things in order to act as a bridge for compatibility from marine life to mammals. On the mention of having canine influence, need I not address its legs? The creature's legs seem to have a very canine-based musculoskeletal system, when observing the physical traits especially noticeable in the ankles. Although hard to spot, the toes are protruded further, showcasing that the creature is a biologically altered human, with long claw-like nails. It appears to have trouble standing and walking, with a condition known as ballerina syndrome, effectively meaning standing/walking on your tippy toes. Showcasing the creature has strong canine leg design adapted poorly to fully walking upright, like a ditrograde trying to be a bipedal, or in layman's terms, a dog trying to walk like a human. Within the gameplay footage, the Requiem stalker's preference to move like a quadrupedal creature is evidenced by its bipedal motion exhibiting difficulty in the form of ballerina syndrome, whereas in contrast, it is capable of very quickly traveling through tight spaces in the ceiling and moving on all fours. The behavioral pattern in its movement suggests that the creature's legs are not built for bipedal locomotion, but can temporarily adopt it when necessary, like gorillas or bears do occasionally. Another clear sign to us that the creature's natural gait is quadrupedal, with bipedalism being to it a secondary or unnatural position. In the way that it moves through tight spaces and utilizes the ceiling to traverse, as shown by it creating openings in the ceiling to do so, it also draws similarities to the way that ambushed predators descend from above, mirroring behavioral traits to that of wolves or big cats. Canines particularly have adopted a high degree of limb flexibility and climbing capability in the wild, which is why Umbrella likely adopted such a musculoskeletal structure for the creature. Conclusively, the creature exhibits multiple overlying traits of a canine that just can't be coincidental. Ditrograde lower limbs, natural quadruped gait, predatory adaptations, speed, stealth, ceiling movement, and awkward bipedal locomotion, made undeniable considering its existence with ballerina syndrome. The last more notable trait of the creature is its upper limbs. The Requiem Stalker's arms use a human skeletal layout with normal joint placement and 5-fingered hands. The muscles, proportions, and joint behavior match human anatomy, with aside from the claws, one other notable difference. When the creature first encounters Grace, we can see as it reaches to consume a deceased scientist on the floor that all of its fingers have double digits. Having one or two could be passed as a mere side effect, but given that all digits are double jointed, it is made of something of a biological impossibility. Granted, we are talking about a fictional series that has people made of mold, but I think that the creature having human dexterity subtly affirms what Umbrella was trying to do when creating this creature. Up to this point, everything we've examined points towards deliberate, layered design, rather than mutation by chance. The Requiem Stalker is not the result of a single pathogen running unchecked, nor is it a failed experiment left to rot. Its anatomy shows restraint where restraint is required, exaggeration where function demands it, and most importantly, compatibility across radically different biological systems. The level of cohesion does not emerge from one virus, one parasite, or one methodology in the series.
Which can only mean one thing.
The horrifying truth of what this creature is, the real reason Victor Gideon needs people like Grace, is that the B.O.W is a composite weapon made up of multiple parasites, or a parasite that has been created from merging them together with radiation, with their traits working together in tangent to create the ultimate killing machine. Let's start with the K.D. In Resident Evil 8, the K.D.'s parasite mutates people into that of a lichen, and can be seen altering a person's physical structure from human to canine, amplifying their physical capabilities, with even mere lichens being capable of scaling buildings from the ground in a single jump. Look no further than how the Requiem Stalker's legs appear nearly identical to that of a Varlak. Using the K.D.'s parasite optimizes speed, strength, and agility of the Requiem Stalker, whilst also providing stealth and predatory tactics. Then there's the T-Abyss virus, shown to adapt a host body for low-light, high-pressure, oxygen-poor environments, mimicking deep-sea life, explaining the creature's eyes, which the T-Abyss virus is shown to be capable of enlarging or altering their eyes, optimizing them for darkness, but also preparing them through behavioral change in using all of your body's senses. It's also the only virus in the series capable of doing this, aside from perhaps taking into account Moru's boss fight, showing him to be a large fish man.
They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine, but you just can't get into it because they would never
Moru
understand.
deserved better. Another notable trait of the virus is it reactivates or destabilizes dormant growth pathways, thus forming osteoclasts, bone-forming cells, into continuous activities, while simultaneously preventing proper formation of the growth plates. A third more crucial catalyst is also hinted at being the G-virus, with the cranial deformation, bone protrusions likely being bone cancer. If the bone cancer was the result of the K.D., it would crystallize as seen in the skeletons of the Varlaks around the village, but the fact that it doesn't really leans into this being the G-virus. This is particularly useful for building a perfect killer, as the G-virus is capable of a variety of things not seen in viruses or other parasites. Most notably, the G-virus provides rapid and extreme regeneration response to any injury, even as a last-ditch effort, birthing a separate, smaller creature to continue survival. What's even more terrifying is that the G-virus is completely unique in its ability to keep a host alive indefinitely without food. The G-virus rapidly rewires a host metabolism to find ways of attaining energy without normal calorie intake. The host body triggers regeneration of its cells. to create excess mass which is then consumed and recycled, meaning it turns itself into a self-sustaining recyclable system.
When you take this into account, as well as the K2 influence, in theory you have a perfect biological killer weapon that is entirely self-sustaining without food, can regenerate from any attack, and perhaps is not even constrained by age, given how the K2 could keep the Four Lords alive, or even its Lycan inhabitants alive, for centuries.
On top of its superior genetics, its intelligence is evidently high, with the double-jointed digits and human limbs used for fine motor skills. Just from what little we have seen, I could conclude that at minimum, this creature is on another level of intelligence from the B.O.Ws we've seen prior. Sure, Umbrella could create a series of bioweapons capable of only certain tasks, but doing them well, such as how the Tyrants could be sent out on missions relatively effectively, and navigate basic obstacles. But most Tyrants were largely mindless behind basic commands, with limited learning or multi-sensory reasoning. Even Nemesis was by definition single-minded and following commands, with a behavior mostly reactive and a goal focused as opposed to adaptive hunting strategies, relying on what it had been given and not what it was fully capable of. It didn't showcase potential to learn so much as it showcased a clear-cut focus and behavior. The Requiem Stalker does not abide by such restrictions. It doesn't rely on a chip or pre-programming. When a problem presents itself, it doesn't simply just find a way around. It mentally notes it and learns, through making any environment it's introduced into a new hunting ground, and finding ways to assist itself, such as it creating tunnels to traverse narrow areas that would otherwise slow it down, and using them to ambush players from the roof, showcasing to us an advanced mind. A mind outside of Umbrella's prior projects like the Tyrants and Nemesis, showing a limited range of abilities, including advanced tracking, selective targeting, and occasional tactics. A mind capable and refined so as to give it multi-sensory reasoning and compensation, improvisational and ambush tactics, complex environmental problem-solving, and spatial awareness. A mind that makes its own decisions. A mind with a conscience. Silently stalking a desired target with genuine strategy. It doesn't just walk around blindly like Mr. X did in Resident Evil 2. It actually waits for you. It shows pre-attack assessment, and a behavior that doesn't just speak mindless aggression. The fact this stalker enemy actually will wait for you from the little openings in the roof is absurdly impressive and scary. That by definition is actual premeditation. By pulling from all they had that was available, by precisely selecting viruses and parasites to work together in tangent for a single host engineered from birth to be perfectly capable, Umbrella made their most ambitious and dangerous creation. The Requiem Stalker is more than just a weaponized monster, it's a hunter itself. It does what it does for itself, not Umbrella. Look no further than the broken restraints and dead scientists. It chose to escape. It made a decision for itself, not its purpose. Nemesis or Mr. X couldn't ever do anything like that. Because this thing is actually alive. The human consciousness weaponized to retain cognitive retention, but working too well. And that is why it was locked away. With all of its powers and abilities, Umbrella couldn't control it, so it was just locked underground, somewhere it could never escape. This is just a slight theory here, but I think the creature being reactive to light was an intentional countermeasure that Umbrella put into place. The reason its only weakness is light, the reason they didn't try to perfect its immunity, particularly surrounding the T-Abyss virus, is because it was the only constant that allowed it to be contained. How else do you contain a creature with perfect physical power and function, with a body capable of surviving anything you throw at it and being smart enough to call the shots? You use a child, and you psychologically condition it. You make it afraid of the dark.
Or perhaps in this case, the light.
So that's all well and good, but what does Victor want with it and us? There simply has to be a correlation, as one awakening strapped to the bed with an IV and presumably having blood samples taken from us, we find ourselves mere floors apart as the same one that was containing the creature. To begin, I think I understand how it broke out. Very likely when Grace was running from Victor and attempting to leave the Road Hill Chronic Care Center, she likely flipped a switch of some sort in efforts to power down whatever system was in her way in order to get out, the gates or bars that sealed off the entrance and whatnot. But unknowingly, she cut power to the room containing the stalker, and consequently cutting off power to the lights keeping it docile and controlled. All it took was a brief second that Victor evidently didn't notice in his pursuit of Grace, and that one moment for it to regain its sight ripped free from its restraints, killing all of the staff on the same floor designated to its captivity. Grace, waking up amongst all the panic, is able to free herself and unknowingly make her way down to the creature's domain, perhaps via a ventilation system, and thus marks the start of the game. After 8 years following her mother's death, Victor's goal is to lure Grace to him.
I know now that you're the one that I've been searching for. The special one. The chosen one. Miss Ashcroft.
With their reunion marking him referring to her as the chosen one. From the official Resident Evil wiki, it states, he realizes that Grace's blood is the key to freeing Elpis. He kidnaps her with the intent of draining her blood and conducting experiments. The only explanation for how Grace's blood is crucial to him, and required in some relation to the creature, is her relation to Alyssa Ashcroft, her mother. Alyssa Ashcroft was a skilled Umbrella scientist who became exposed to the T-Abyss virus during a high-risk experiment involving human subjects and mutagenic bioorganic weapons. She encountered a violent outbreak that forced her to fight for her survival, during which her immune system adapted uniquely to the virus, halting its mutagenic effects within her. Over time, this exposure granted her full immunity, making her one of the few humans able to resist and survive the virus's deadly mutations. Given that the T-Abyss virus is also used in the creature, there is only one explanation for why he wants Grace. Her immunity and antibodies, if used in the creature, would perfect and remove unwanted effects of the virus and parasites. Now, I will take a bit of a side note here, and I'm going to be reading off my script for this, but on August 22nd last year, I checked the IMDb that was tied to the game. You can see a photo up on the screen, but whilst you can't find this info out now, I believe it does reveal some intriguing layers to how wide a scope Victor's plans are. Now, I can't officially show you any information from this document, like the actors involved or anything, but from what I've seen so far, it does seem pretty legit. I just don't want to take the risk that Capcom's going to strike the video because this is kind of leaked information, so in order to avoid that happening, I will just kind of tell you the characters that I do think are important to know here. As for the legitimacy of this IMDb page, it correctly lists Leon being present, which as of the present was confirmed by the newest trailer. But all you need to know is the characters I'm specifically interested in this listing shows people who have antibodies to particular viruses and parasites in the series. And one that has a bit of a connection to Ada and Leon, I don't know if his existence is canon yet, but it basically outright labels that they have a child together, which could explain why Leon is in Raccoon City, but I don't know if that's the case or not. Once again, might not be true. But there is a character that isn't listed here that I do think is genuinely back, and that would be Rose Winters, as we don't know what happened to her following her visiting her father's grave and being taken away by the Secret Service. For all we know, this could have been the day that she was abducted by Gideon and also used to take blood samples of for the creature. But hold on a second, when we saw Rose, it was 2037. Doesn't RE9 take place in 2028? Well, I have an explanation for that. As seen in the gameplay footage, we initially see the event that took place in the Renwood with Alyssa being killed by Gideon. In the present events of RE9, it's been 8 years after that. If the events in the Renwood were actually to happen in 2028, and the present day takes place 8 years later, that places us in 2036, lining the timeline up by about 12 months, which works. Another thing to support this likelihood is the fact that after beating Resident Evil 8, we are only given the text stating the father's story is complete.
Thus meaning Rose's story could be a part of Resident Evil 9.
So we know why Victor's collecting the blood samples. It's to try and perfect the creature or new creation from the same project that made the Requiem Stalker. But what correlation is this to reportedly the goal he has with freeing Elpis? We see Leon find heavily redacted files inside of his facility, so just what could Elpis be? What is the FBI director working with him on, and what does Capcom want to hide from us? Now, this video has been stretching on for quite a bit, but I believe that Elpis is the key to tying these games together. And I believe that the truth behind what Elpis is has been plainly hidden in main sight, or at very least planned, and that we've been staring it in the face ever since Resident Evil 4. Elpis refers to the story of Pandora's box, which comes from Greek mythology. In Greek mythology, Pandora was the first woman created by the gods as part of punishment to humanity. She was given a box, a jar in earlier versions, and told never to open it. Driven by curiosity, Pandora eventually opened the box, unintentionally releasing all evils of the world: sickness, pain, toil, and misfortune. leaving humanity to suffer. However, at the very bottom of the box remained Elpis, the spirit of hope. Though all other evils escaped into the world, hope stayed behind, offering humanity the comfort and resilience to endure suffering and continue striving despite hardships. Given that brief overview of the myth, it seems Victor's goal is to free something that is trapped or stuck. I think that the box, in this instance, is the Megamycete. It's been shown to be able to place intentions and twist people's motivations, as in the case with Rose being tricked into believing it was her key to salvation, her key to hope, a key to Elpis. I believe what is inside this metaphorical box, being the Megamycete, is the true villain of the games. And of all the games, it's been trying to escape and have a perfect physical vessel to have dominion over life itself, something that goes by a name we've heard before, the Black God. In Resident Evil, we've seen a variety of scientific explanation for the horrors seen in the franchise. Folklores like zombies, vampires, sea monsters, werewolves, even witches, which has been explained through biological parasites and viruses. But even with all of that, the Megamycete is somehow just so inexplicable. The Megamycete was the core of a mold supercolony that existed beneath Eastern Europe, located in a cabin beneath a rural village. This organism was enormous and took on the rough shape of a human fetus. The Megamycete's most notable traits was its ability to absorb the genetic memory of anyone it came into contact with, effectively copying all of the individual's memories and personality traits and storing them within itself. But how? There is no explanation other than the Megamycete being a part of something otherworldly and something that we cannot possibly explain using modern science. But I propose a theory. Whether or not the Black God is actually a god, or perhaps some cosmic organism that human history has perceived to be a god, the Megamycete wasn't really its physical form. It was a physical prison, or a constraint. When Ethan detonated the explosives to the supercolony as it lifted him up, it was like it was welcoming it. The truth of the ending of Resident Evil 8 is that Ethan didn't kill the Black God. He freed it from a form that was limiting it, inhibiting it. He gave Elpis exactly what it wanted. We even know this to be the case, as even after the Megamycete's destruction, it still exists outside of the physical plane, with Miranda's consciousness using it to target Ethan's daughter years after it's been gone. So how does Elpis or the Black God tie back to Victor? Well, I don't think Victor is working to free it, because I believe it is Victor, or at least it's sharing his mind, and he doesn't know it. When discovering the projects in its early days and Umbrella conducting tests on it, Elpis, now free from the Megamycete, latched onto Victor's subconscious. It's been shown to be able to manipulate people and place thoughts and drives into their head to commit actions to serve its agenda. But with the way Victor talks to Grace, asking if she wants to see what's under the hood, what else could this mean other than him being controlled by a higher power? And I also believe this higher power has been preparing for this and influencing the story from the very beginning. It was there at the village with Miranda, and with some very particular help, was able to spread from Romania to Spain, and from there, the rest of the world. I think every central figure in Resident Evil, Mother Miranda, Ramon Salazar, Osmond Sadler, Oswald E. Spencer, and even
Wesker
have been manipulated subconsciously by this thing. Think about it. Every single event has been for a purpose. Everything has been leading up to this thing being freed, and Umbrella's development of a near-biological weapon. But why does it care about developing a perfect weapon? Well, what does an all-powerful, all-knowing consciousness do that has little to no power in the physical world for centuries? Well, I believe it plots, waits, and eventually it decides to create a physical form powerful enough for it to be able to fully inhabit and control. A form strong enough to bend what to it is lesser life forms to its very will. And that is why Victor is doing what he's doing. That is why, in order to free Elpis, he, under its control, had to abduct the only people whose genetic code would allow a perfected physical body to inhabit, and as such, have dominion over life itself. All starting by the manipulation of a grieving mother, and spreading out to cultivate the desires for powers in the worst of humanity. Leading to a final chapter, a time its physical reckoning may at last have come. But then, who are the connections? Who helped spread its influence all over the world? How do you start in Romania and go to Spain? There is only one explanation, and it is all proven indirectly by the first person it manipulated, Mother Miranda. It all ties back to her name. The name Miranda originates in Spain. In 1909, Miranda had her first and only child named Eva that sadly died 10 years later in 1919 from the Spanish flu. Knowing that it's canonical that the Spanish flu attacked the village, as well as Miranda herself and her family being from Spain, Romania had evidently formed connections with Spain in the Resident Evil timeline. And what connections would that be? Trade.
What are you buying?
What are you buying? Just something an old friend of mine used to say.
The true founding members of the connections have been the merchants the entire time. The Duke, the merchant, have all been serving a crucial role for their master, the Megamycete. Consciousnesses plucked from the network of deceased souls.
Who or what are you?
Even I can't quite answer that.
And used as vessels for a plan, to slowly manipulate things behind the scenes. This is why the merchants and dukes are seemingly inhumanly fast and following you as you cross the map. And more importantly, it's the reason the Duke is allowed in Miranda's village and the Four Lords' domains. It even explains who guided Spencer to Miranda, which led to him creating Umbrella. It explains why they kept on supporting you throughout the games.
Not my place to say, really, but sometimes things are more interesting if you keep a level playing field, don't you find?
Masking their true motives in a hollow promise of generosity.
Why are you doing all this?
Why, it's all part of our first-class customer service.
They weren't helping us. They were using us to get rid of loose ends. Leading us to a present day where its most recent puppet, Victor Gideon, is preparing its physical vessel that will be ready for it to inhabit. A man who would open Pandora's box. A man who would free Elpis. Hey guys, I decided to reshoot the ending of this video because the last time I was really quite annoyed with myself. I kept messing up words in the script. I probably tried to like dub over some things in post, but I really had a bit of trouble with that. But when I was filming the original ending of this video, it just felt a bit too insincere, like I was reading off a script. So I wanted to use no script here. I just want to say thank you so much for all the support. We just hit 1,000 subscribers a little while ago. I am so shocked. You know, I absolutely love making things that people enjoy. You know, I'm a nerd myself. I remember sitting down for the first time in front of the TV and playing Resident Evil 4 and you know, being scared to death of those guys with the axes and stuff. But I had so much fun making this video. Ever since the trailer came out, I was really just working on it. You know, like I spent nights just rolling around in my sleep trying to put this together, and it actually took I think about, well, I don't know how long it's been since the trailer came out, but let's just say about like 2 months. So like 2 months of writing the actual script, and then about like a couple of weeks worth of editing, and it was a long process. It took quite a good chunk of time. But I hope you guys enjoyed it. I'm planning to make some more videos and everything, and I will do a subscriber special at some point. If you want to check out the creative projects I do on my Instagram, I like to do cosplay, and I also like to discuss more nerdy things every now and then, but I usually do that on my private account, so I need to do that more on my public account, but I will get to doing that. Last thing I guess I wanted to say was, what was it again? As I was saying, I've got a couple other videos planned, which includes the origin of Albert Wesker and how he's actually connected to Karl Heisenberg, and just some other things in general. The big one is coming with the Strange Man from Red Dead Redemption, and I'm also going to try and do some work on psychological profiles, or just like, I suppose, analyzing certain characters or the writing, and I hope you guys enjoy that. Yeah, this is this is getting really long now, so I'm going to try and finish the editing, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. So I hope you had a good day, and I hope you enjoyed the video, and I will see you in the next one.
My back is killing me.